This portion is Shoftim, Judges. It's a very powerful message. Here. Firstly, I want to first talk about the opening verse. The Parasha begins by saying, Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha bechol she'arecha. Judges and officers shall you appoint for yourself in all your gates. And it sounds like just a standard verse, but it has a much deeper meaning than that. Why does it say in all your gates, not just place judges and officers? And it refers to not only the gates of the camp, but if not the gates of the person. How many gates do we have? We have 7. We have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and a mouth. Those are all our gates. We have to place judges and officers to guard and make sure nothing evil enters through our gates. Nothing impure, nothing bad enters through our gates. And it's like it says not only to put gates in the city, in the camp, wherever we may be, but if not also in our own soul. And before anything enters our mind or enters our thoughts, we have to think first, should I let this in? Before we talk, before we say anything, should I say this? Think before we do anything, before we react. Before we react, we should say, is this emotion controlling me, or am I controlling the emotion? And this opens up a deeper idea, another teaching. We need a beidin within us. A person can have a thought without acting on that thought. A person can feel anger without speaking in a angrily manner. A person can have a desire to do something without following through with it, without doing the action. And that's our inner shofet, our inner judge. The Yetzer Hara says, do it. Our emotions say it. Our ego says, you're right. But our neshama says, think before acting, before doing anything. And that's why the Torah begins with Shoftim, the judges. Before we can judge anyone else, before we can judge our brother, our parents, whoever, before we can judge them, we first have to judge ourselves. And later in the Parasha, it discusses, after discussing the forbidden ways of knowing the future, the Torah says, you shall be wholehearted with Hashem, your Elohim. What does tamim mean? It has many meanings. It can mean complete, whole, sincere, many different meanings of the word, but in this verse, it means something else. this verse is trying to say is don't become obsessed with knowing only what Hashem knows. Like, there's people that say, what was before Hashem? Who created Hashem? Who is Hashem? That's something we can't understand. We can't know until the only one that knows is Hashem. The only one that knows who is Hashem is Hashem. And there's a saying, I've heard it many times by other rabbis, I'd rather believe in something false than not believe and be wrong. Like believe and be wrong than not believe and be wrong. Like if you believe in God and there's a God, then you are correct. But if you don't believe in Him and there is a God, then you blasphemed, you spoken against Him. You said that He wasn't real, and so it's better to believe than to not believe. And we also see we can't know everything. A lot of people want to know what's going to happen in the future, or who will be placed as ruler, who's going to be the Antichrist, who will be the king, the governor, the president. We can't know this. We can have an opinion, we can have a prediction, but we can't say for sure that this person will be king, this person will be president, this person will be governor, this person will be in the future. Like, for all we know, we could just not wake up tomorrow. So we have to focus on the present and stop looking at the future. Focus on right now and not on what's going to happen. And there's another teaching. Another verse says, "Lo imatze vecha kusem samim meonen menachesh." People who attempt to determine hidden things, or it's talking about like people who attempt or determine hidden things, or try and predict the future. And Hashem says, "Tamim tihye im Hashem Elohecha." The same verse we spoke about earlier, and it's because Hashem is saying you don't need to know everything that is going to happen. We don't need to know what's going to happen in 10 years, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen in 100 years, or what's going to happen in 1,000 years. We have to trust Hashem. And, it may seem difficult, not to think of what's going to happen in the future or focus on what's going to happen in the future. But that's something we have to live with, the uncertainty of what will happen with us. And that's why the verse says, "Tamim be wholehearted." You don't have to know everything, you just have to trust in Hashem. And just like how the book of Daniel says, He removes kings and establishes kings. Like, we can't know who's going to be king, who's going to be ruler, who's going to be governor, who's going to be president, because that's all in Hashem's. Hashem controls all. Who placed Saul as the first king? Was it the people? No, it was Hashem. It was a raffle to see who was going to be king, and Saul was a chosen one. the people didn't decide who was going to be the king. It was Hashem. After Saul had turned away from Hashem, who was after him? David, King David, David HaMelech. And who picked him as king? Not the people, it was Hashem. And we see before them, there was the son of Saul, Eshbaal. The people chose him as the next king because he was, logically, he would have been the successor of the throne after Jonathan and Saul had died. But in the book of Samuel, they changed his name from Eshbaal, son of man, or man of man, to Ishbosheth, man of shame. And because the people chose him as king instead of Hashem choosing the king. And we saw the way his life ended. Two soldiers barged into his room while he was sleeping and cut his head off. And we see David punish them for it, but that was his tragic end. And then it says a person can look at a king or ruler and think this person may control everything, but the Hamim teach that no human possesses like control over everything. Like a human can't control the weather. A human can't control natural disasters. They can't control war. They can have an opinion over it. They can have a prediction over it. Like we can also see this in the battle of Gideon. It was 300 men against an army of thousands. And what happened? The army of thousands lost a group of men. Same happened with the Maccabees. Logically speaking, it was an army of Greeks. They had elephants. They had thousands upon thousands of warriors, of soldiers. And the logical answer would have been, then the Greeks will probably win that war because it's a small group of men versus a whole army of thousands. But what happened? The army of thousands fell, and the small group of a couple hundred men won that war. We can't, and people would say, like, people who don't know the story would say, then the Greeks probably won because they had many men. But that's one thing we can't do. We can't know everything. The only one that knows everything and has control over everything is Hashem. He's all-knowing and all-powerful. And like Hashem can raise a king and he can remove a king. He raised Saul as the first king and removed him after he had shifted off the path. And he did the same with David. No king has been perfect. But David, he committed adultery and he killed an innocent man. And even with King Solomon, the greatest of the kings, the one who achieved world peace, the only time that world peace has ever happened was when Solomon was king. I don't even say that he was the Messiah of that time. That he was people called him the Messiah that Hashem had spoken of previously. And because there was no wars, there were no deaths, no unjustified deaths, while Solomon was king. You think that he wouldn't have any corruption, but we see later on in the story of Solomon, he shifted off the path by going to Mount Tabor to learn magic and how to forge weapons from the two fallen angels. He learned the ways of Bilam, and that pushed him off the path. His days ended not as righteous. And we see even one of the greatest people ended tragically. Like the curse that occurred with David. Not so much of a curse, but that the sword wouldn't leave his family. They would all die they would all be killed. Now, we can look at other kings, like the two worst kings, King Ahab and King Manasseh. Ahab was king over Israel, and Manasseh was king over Judah. Now, we see Ahab, he died, he was killed, and the dogs licked his blood. But we look at Manasseh's death, and he died of natural causes. He died of old age. Now, he was the worst king, even worse, far worse than Ahab. He had sacrificed his kids to Moreh. He had killed many people. He killed his own grandfather, the prophet Isaiah, and he profaned the temple by placing false idols. And we ask, why did Manasseh have such a peaceful death if he was such a bad person? Habib explained that once he was in his final days, he completely saw what he had done, and he started working on cleaning the temple out. He stopped praising false gods, and he tried to fix what he had done. It was difficult. He couldn't do it. The prophet King Hoshea had to finish his work, but Hashem forgave him for all he had done and allowed him to die peacefully. It was one of the only deaths that I'm pretty sure it was the only king that died and that wasn't killed, because King Hoshea died in a war. Ahab died in a war. David died from his death was already prophecy. It was said that he was going to die on Shabbat. So every Shabbat, David would study the Torah throughout the entire day, not stopping once. And the reason he died was because a gust of wind opened the window, and he went to go close it, and in that second, the wind hit him. And it wasn't the wind that killed him, it was Hashem that, not Hashem, but like the curse, we could say, that was the prophecy was being fulfilled of his death. It wasn't a peaceful death because he was in pain. And Solomon, he was killed too. And so we see the only one that controls everything is Hashem. Why did he kill a just king? Why was it just king killed and a terrible one led with a peaceful death? We can't answer that question. Only Hashem knows. And that brings back to it's okay to have opinions. It's okay to make predictions. It's okay to discuss politics. But there's a point, it gets to a point where the person can say, oh, I know exactly what is going to happen. I know who will be the king, the next president, the next ruler. And that's when we're entering dangerous territory, because they're starting to try and become all-knowing. Well, the only one that's all-knowing is Hashem. they start to put everything before Hashem. Like, or like if a person is starting to discuss politics all day, instead of doing their prayers, they discuss politics. They discuss about their job. They just work all day, and they start putting that before Hashem, putting that before their prayers, and then it starts to become a habit to them. And then on Shabbat, they even start bringing that. They start going to work on Shabbat. They start discussing politics on Shabbat. They start doing this. They start doing that on Shabbat. And that's when it gets to that point where that person is putting everything before Hashem, leaving Hashem behind. And that's when that person enters the dangerous territory where they are no longer close to Hashem. Hashem's up here while they're all the way to the ground. They're all the way up. Their soul level has gone down significantly. Because you don't know what Hashem has planned, so trying to become all-knowing and trying to know everything that's going to happen is just not a thing that we are capable of. Like a person can say, I think this person will become king. I think this person will become the president. But that person can't say. There's no way anyone else would become the king. Anyone else would become the president. And because the Torah says, Moreh malkin umakem malkin. Hashem establishes kings and removes kings. Like we can see someone who's powerful today, but Hashem doesn't look at today like how we look at today. We see today as the present. Hashem looks into the future. Hashem is He's the only one that can look into the future, that sees the future. People say, oh, but Satan knows the future too. No, he predicts it, like how humans can predict, but he's not all-knowing like Hashem. And there's people that ask, but how is there people that say they know what's going to happen in the future? And that's, if nowadays someone goes up to you and says they're a prophet, they've seen the future, they know what's going to happen, it's probably false. Not probably, it is false, because the only one who knows the future now is Hashem. How did prophets see the future? It was through dreams that Hashem gave them, through visions. No prophet other than Moshe spoke directly to Hashem. Everything that was revealed to them was through dreams and through visions. The prophet Isaiah, prophet Eliyahu, they were spoken to through dreams and through visions. Every prophet except for Moshe. He was the only one, like the Torah says, he spoke to him face to face. It doesn't mean that that they were like sitting across from each other on a table. It means that he could speak to him and Hashem would answer back. And that's something we can't say either. That, oh, I'm going to go speak to Hashem. I'm going to talk to Hashem. No, we have to say, I'm going to pray to Hashem. Because talking to Hashem is like, for example, like Julian talks to his father. His father replies. Or a person talks to someone else, and the other person will answer them. Like the example I just said, the father and son, they talk forward and back till the conversation ends. With Hashem, we speak to Hashem. He doesn't speak to us. We wait for him to answer our prayers. He doesn't answer them immediately. We have to learn that we don't speak to Hashem No, sorry, Hashem doesn't speak to us, we speak to Hashem. He doesn't respond to us immediately. It's not like, oh, um, I'm gonna ask for health, and like that, it's granted. No, we have to wait for that, for Hashem um, to fulfill our prayers, and we have to keep praying over that. We can't just pray once. We have to keep praying over and over again till even after Hashem has fulfilled that prayer, just keep praying to Him, and that's one of the teachings that that's one of the things that teach us in this parasha. We can't predict the future. We can't know everything that's going to happen. We can't speak directly to Hashem, and there's also the verse Tamim Piyeh. Tamim, like people say, who will be king? But Torah says, Tamim Piyeh im Hashem Elohecha. And it also says, don't become consumed with things that are hidden. And because if you believe that Hashem is in control, you don't have to know exactly how things will occur, how things will fall in place, because that's Hashem's job. We can't know who's going to be the king in the next 10 years, who's going to be president in the next 10 years. Only Hashem will know that. And that's the real faith, that's the real emunah. To live with uncertainty. We can live with uncertainty. It may seem difficult, but in reality, after some time passes, we get used to it, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week. But what we do is we have to trust Hashem, that Hashem will do His will be fulfilled, and we won't have to worry about what happens to us, because it's all part of Hashem's plan. And then it continues, the teaching continues and says, the Chachamim continue saying, because if you, anyone can trust Hashem when things seem natural, when everything seems like it's in order. But as soon as something falls out of place, they may start doubting Hashem. Like, for example, if a person thinks, their job, they're working, they're trusting Hashem with their job, but then suddenly their company starts collapsing. It starts falling. Let's say in stocks, their company starts falling and it starts failing. Then that person starts doubting, and that's where the real sin starts. The real transgression begins, because we're moving away from Hashem, because he's moving around objects. He's moving around what will happen. Only He knows what will happen. We just have to keep trusting in Him. If His will is for that company to collapse, then it will collapse. But then if His will is for it to rise again, then it'll rise again. Everything that happens is because of Hashem's will. Like, we can take events that have happened, like when Moshe warns everyone, like here even, by placing judges and officers, it means to judge ourselves before anything. And the people of Israel could have taken this teaching to judge themselves before, like, because if, like how Moshe's preparing them, because he's seen what will happen. He's seen that the people of Israel would shift off the path and go into idolatry. So Moshe's trying to prepare them so they don't do that. But it was already written in Hashem's will. Hashem's will was already for the people of Israel to shift off the path. And because they did that, Hashem punished them, even though it was his will. We can't know why he punished them, because that's only what Hashem knows. And we see even with Hashem, we see that after the Holocaust, we see that it's a major event in the history of the Jews, because it's a punishment from them, because they were warned, just like in Babylon. The prophet Jeremiah warned the people of Babylon the people of Jerusalem, that Babylon was going to attack. And they didn't believe them. They called him crazy. They even mocked him and punished him. And then came the Babylonians. And that's when they started to believe what he said. There were people that were calling him a traitor, that he knew that was going to happen because he was working with Babylon. But we see that was part of Hashem's plan, because they didn't stay on the path. They started praising other gods. And the same thing happened in the Holocaust in Germany. People, the rabbis of the time, were warning them that if they didn't flee from the country, then a mass murder was going to happen, and if they didn't flee. And the rabbis left, but the people that didn't believe the rabbis stayed. And what happened? They were burned, they were killed, they were shot, they were placed in concentration camps. And we see that for that reason Hashem punished them. It was already said that it would happen. But people didn't believe. They didn't trust that. They didn't think that Hashem would do that to them. But it was already a part of Hashem's plan. Now, we can't know if everything is already written, or if Hashem's placing it, because Hashem knows, but we can't know if he's slowly building it up, building the timeline to all fall into place, or if he's already made it, and we're just following through with what he said. He could be like slowly placing everything in order, or he could have already had everything prepared, like a Lego set. He had it already built. He just said he just has it already built, and he's just watching, making sure everything goes smoothly. Or he's slowly building that set up to, we can't know what his plans are. We can't know what he's doing, if he's building it up, or if he already has it built. And that's something we have to live with. We have to live with that uncertainty, and just trust that, and just trust in Hashem that he will do what is best for us. And with the Holocaust, millions of Jews died. Millions. There was about around 1 million or less left, and now it's double of what it was before the Holocaust began. When the Holocaust began, it was about 10 million Jews, and now it's almost at 20 million. It doubled over time. Because when when they left Egypt, um, originally it was the original amount of Jews that were there. It was 80% of the Jews, well, of the Israelites died in Egypt because it was Hashem's will. They left Egypt with only 20%, which was 600,000. And this is only counting the Jews that were, well, the Israelites that were able to go to war. That were 20, from 20 to 50, I believe. So this is only counting them. It's not counting children, women, the adults, the seniors. And we see after, they're even past, after all the events of the rebellion of Korah, the golden calf, their population has risen even more. Even after that, they started with 600,000, and it rose past 600 to, I don't remember the exact amount, but after that, when Moshe had he counted everyone except for the tribe of the Levites, I believe. After, I don't remember exactly the amount, but it was past what they left was in Egypt. And, we can continue on with this. There's a deeper teaching that talks about Nistar and Nigla. This is an important concept between Nistar, which is the hidden, and Nigla, the revealed. The Torah says, "Hanistar la Hashem Eloheinu, ve'haniglot lanu ulvanenu." The hidden things belong to Hashem, our God, and the revealed things belong to us and our children. And just how there are things that Hashem has revealed slowly to people, and there's things that are hidden still. Like, for example, the previous Parasha, in the Zohar, it is hidden. It's not in the Zohar because it wasn't Hashem's will for it to be written yet. You can check every single Zohar, and the Parasha won't be there. It's completely removed because it's not for our times yet. Hashem has said it'll be added once it's His time, not ours. Just how, and that's a thing that something that is hidden and is only for Hashem and not for us. And until it is revealed, it'll be for us as well. And now our responsibility is to deal with what is already revealed. And we don't have to force ourselves to reveal what Hashem has hidden. And there's Chachamim teach that reality has levels that aren't visible. What we see physically is only a part of what's there. There are spiritual realities and divine things taking place that we can't perceive, we can't see with our physical eyes. So when something happens, we might say, this is bad, but we actually don't know what's going to happen, what everything else is, whatever is going to occur afterwards. Maybe what looks bad now is eventually going to be something good, something better. Like the golden calf looked bad then, and it was, it was bad then, and it's still bad now. Like, might sound a little confusing, but now after the golden calf, then the Israelites were able to reach the past neshama to Haya and Yehidah, past those levels, which we see it started off as something bad. Those levels were removed from everyone after the golden calf, but they were placed back after the golden calf. It seemed bad at first that they weren't going to have those levels anymore of the soul, but then they were able to reach those levels after turning into something better, something good. And then we can take it as the opposite as well. What looks like something good may spiritually be something evil or something bad. What looks like success may be something destructive. And maybe what looks like failure is preparing someone for even more, like something greater. Like we can see some, like, let's see. It may seem like once like someone is failing, someone isn't like their job is going bad. They're not making what they wanted to, or a person can be going through a test by Hashem. Like we can take the biggest example, Job. We see him. He went through so much, and why? Because Hashem was testing him. Hashem was preparing him to receive his reward. And Hamim teaches that when the Israelites left Egypt, Hasatan was after them, and he was going to go mess with them to try and knock them off the path. So instead, Hashem sent him to go test Job, test him, but he told him not to take his life. So he occupied Satan with Job. Meanwhile, he was with the Israelites. And we see it was all part of Hashem's plan, all part of His will. And that's something we need to take, and we need to comprehend. We need to see that we have to follow Hashem's will, not ours. He gave us free will to choose between options. He gives us options. He doesn't tell us to do this now, or it's not like do this now or you die. Pick a side, death or doing what I tell you. He says you can do what I tell you and choose life, or do what you want and have the possibility to choose death. He gives us the options, not directly forcing us to pick what he wants. And we see that. He gave us free will, meanwhile all his angels are forced to do what he says. They're not forced, they have to do what he says, because they don't have free will. And, there's a question. How, if angels don't have free will, how did Satan rebel? He didn't. Satan never rebelled against Hashem, because he can't. There were two angels, only two fallen angels, that Hashem sent down when they had they tricked Hashem. Hashem already knew what was going to happen, but he let it occur. When the two angels went up to him and asked him if they allow them to turn into humans and watch around Earth. So Hashem allowed them. He already knew they were going to turn human and use their free will, but he let it happen. And then because they chose this with their free will, they chose to have relations with the female daughters of the man. They were punished and sent into eternal imprisonment. And the main reason was because they taught them how to forge weapons and how to use magic. And because of that, they were punished severely. They are chained up completely in a hidden part of Mount Tabor. One has its mouth shut, and the other has its eyes shut completely. So one can't see it, but he can talk. And the other can't talk, but he can see. And those were the punishments. Because because they taught how to kill, how to take the lives of another. Cain had already taken the life of his brother, but it's not said what he took it with. But later on, they forged weapons to kill others, which is why Hashem punished them so severely, punished the angels so severely, because they created creatures that are they made hybrid creatures, basically, half human, half angel, half fish, half human, half this, half that, and it ended up with them in prison for eternity. And we see we can even still be punished, we can be punished for our choices. Like, Hashem doesn't curse. Hashem gives us the option. If we choose the blessing and and follow Him, or if we choose to curse and follow what the human desires, if we follow those, or follow Hashem. And that's what I wanted to talk about.
You definitely have to trust Hashem, have faith, and he's absolutely correct. You don't know what is out there. And Levi, you did a wonderful job, my brother.
Yes.
Wonderful job.